Usually videos on this channel are about creators or artists that I had some idea existed or were connected through someone else I had covered. And although Flatsound was mentioned in the Christian Novelli video, as they had or have a duo project called Wishing, this video will be a bit different, because I've actually been following Flatsound since 2018, and a lot of the music holds a special place in my heart. But this is the Online Disappearance of Flatsound. Mitch Welling, known by the stage name Flatsound, would start making music in around 2007, although his first release on Bandcamp wouldn't be until 2 years later in 2009, entitled Scotland, I Wish You Had Stayed, with the most popular track from that album being I Exist, I Exist, I Exist. He described his music as somewhat lo-fi, bedroom acoustic music, and that was what set it apart. You could tell it wasn't the most polished thing ever, but that gave it so much more charm. He would write and record these, according to the script of the album, between 2007 and 2009, and while in 2007 things were kind of okay to my understanding, he states on his website that in 2008 he developed agoraphobia, which is quote-unquote a type of anxiety disorder characterized by a persistent excessive fear or anxiety about being in situations where escape might be difficult or help might not be available in the event of a panic attack. This is somewhat reflected in his music, outside of the themes of love and heartbreak. There's also a common theme of feeling stuck. This theme will continue throughout his music to present day. Oddly enough, there aren't any music videos from this release, outside of the video for It's Sunday, April 19th and I Miss You, at least not from what I could find. Although it's unlikely that the aforementioned release was his first piece of music he put online, as a 2013 save of the now defunct URL for Flatsound songs shows a lot of tracks that aren't present on any releases. More insight is given into this on his website page dedicated to the Scotland album, which states, songs from teenage love and childhood originally uploaded to Myspace and other now defunct websites. This collection of early recordings marks the definitive start of Flatsound, written and recorded 2007 to 2009. Although this is similar to the other description, it gives more insight into not only the themes of the songs, but also in part their origins. I tried to look into the history of his SoundCloud but came up with nothing notable. I decided to look there because one of the links from 2013 linked to SoundCloud. I hear you asking, what about Myspace? Well, I looked into that too, and found a lot more than I was expecting. There's a save of the Flatsound MySpace from 2013, but it doesn't stop there. I found a bunch of the aforementioned songs from that list from 2013, and a bunch more information. Starting with the songs, there was a compilation called Songs You Can Have For Free that Flatsound seemingly released at some point. Although it's no longer available via him, there's a 3-hour compilation of the same name on YouTube. To my understanding, it's songs from early in the Flatsound catalogue, non-album songs and maybe even some earlier stuff pre-2009, I'm not sure. But there's a Reddit thread going through all of it. The post from 2015 is called Damien Parrish and Other Really Old Tracks. It links a reference to Songs You Can Have For Free, and a now deleted blog post entitled Top 10 Flatsound Songs That Didn't Make It To. I don't know the rest of that title, but regardless, according to the post it featured a media file link, which didn't work even in 2015. There's even a collection of music on his website that I found by accident called A Lost Parcel, which is songs from 2007 to 2011. Although I found record of it on the Wayback Machine, that link doesn't work. It's not listed in his work section either, but it's still online, although the Bandcamp link no longer works either. There's a mention of Damien Parrish, which implies that Flatsound used to be known as The Human Heart. The song doesn't play, but it does say that it was released in 2008. The next year, after Scotland, in 2010, he would launch a website for his poetry called My Arms Can Only Reach So Far. There was at least one poem posted each year between 2010 and 2022, with the About section reading, in 2010 I began posting poetry to my Tumblr blog, at first to nobody, but eventually these posts would regularly be liked and shared by thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of other users. I garnered a large following on the platform sharing intimate pieces of my life, text posts, songs, short poems. Over time, my interest in social media dwindled, I got older, my life carried forward, my career in music began to blossom, I became distracted. The poems slowed but never stopped. My Arms Can Only Reach So Far is a collection of some of my writing from back then, the poetry that I've written since, and an empty space for what is yet to come. This not having an entry since 2022 may seem strange, but as the video goes on it'll make more sense. He would also release one of my favourite pieces of music of his in that year, entitled Losing the Interest and Trust I Had in You. Self-described as stripped down, simple and distorted, these 5 songs trade long intros and narrative interludes for a more detailed focus on storytelling. Recorded 2009 to 2010, with the Bandcamp description implying it was to fill time before the release of the next album, which would come about in 2011. 2011 would see the release of the 16-track album I Clung to You Hoping We Both Drown, which is still one of his biggest albums to date, still almost 15 years later. The success of this was largely thanks to My Heart Goes Bum Bum Bum, which is currently at over 800,000 views on YouTube and closing in on 20 million streams on Spotify. This album would also be the first one that Mitch himself would seemingly upload to his channel too. He self-describes the album on his website as a collection of songs broken up by long instrumentals and interweaving interludes fixating on surreal fantasies. The album title communicates the desperation and helplessness of an undiagnosed panic disorder. Next year, 2012, would see the release of the album Sleep, which is quote-unquote designed with the intention of helping its listener fall asleep. The album transitions from songwriting to ambient instrumental music. The whole album is on his channel and is one of only 4 videos of his to have over 1 million views as of writing. The album would even partially get a 10-year anniversary release, with 7 tracks getting 8-bit versions, which was originally on Spotify as well but can now be found via his Bandcamp. 2013 wouldn't see all that much music being released, but in the following years it was evident it was recorded for sure. In fact, 2013 would see the release of You Said Okay, one of his most famous songs. Some of the songs recorded in that year would also make up 2015's If We Could Just Pretend EP and 2018's Old Soil, with those 2 releases being described as in the developing stages of worsening agoraphobia. These 5 songs shine an introspective and critical light on a life gone stagnant for almost 4 years, and Poems of Barren Love and Frustration, originally uploaded to old blogs. These recordings wither and bloom through an aching catharsis, respectively. It would also launch another project entitled Gentle Earth, which you can still view. Its about section reads, Gentle Earth is an ever-growing digital art piece created by Mitch Welling in 2013. This once blank page exists as a catharsis, quiet place for loud thoughts. It's simple. You read, you feel, you contribute to the void. Hopefully you feel a little bit better after. Maybe you even saw some of yourself in it. The website hasn't been updated since July 1st, 2024, with Instagram last seeing activity in May of that same year. 2015 will not only see the start of his duo project Wishing and the release of their first album, To Forget, it would also see the release of the Flatsound EP 4 Songs for Losing You, of which 2 of the 4 songs are his most viewed on his YouTube channel, with those being You Wrote Don't Forget on Your Arm and Learning to Hate You as a Self-Defense Mechanism, having 2.1 million and 1.3 million respectively, as of writing. That same year, his website would also have its first save of the page simply called Sound, which was just that, recordings of sounds. It was archived 20 plus times between 2015 and 2017, but it's now a dead link, for unknown reasons to me. Speaking of random things that I found that don't exist anymore, we have Instant, which looks like a place he took instant photos of his life and posted them, even having a photo project at one point called A Single Instant, which links you to his shop, which was never archived. Not that link specifically, at least. It could be possible the sounds page was turned into Flatsound Radio, which was 24/7 ambient sounds, which also doesn't exist anymore. Although he did turn it into a bit of a podcast, which you can find online. And there's also at least a couple of private videos like My Voice and The Gatorade Story, which I found out existed by accident on his VK page. Mitch and his Wishing collab partner Christian also started a podcast that ran for 20 episodes from 2014 to 2016, I believe, called Sad Soul Advice Club. It would also launch something in 2015 called You're Too Afraid. I thought, looking at this, that it was somewhat an extension of Gentle Earth, but I won't lie, I don't really get it. But although there isn't much, let's dive into what there is, and maybe you can make sense of it and let me know. I did originally think it had been wiped from the internet, but it hasn't. He still has videos about it on his channel even. Well, one at least. Let's start with the first project called 427 Beds. The video is on screen now. He got people to take photos of their own beds and send them to him. And with the help of Nicky Seaman, they stuck all the photos to a wall together, like an art installation. I'm unsure if this was his own house or what, but yeah, 427 people's beds. All of the photos were sent in by people, and some of them are displayed at some point of the video with their first name and age. There was also supposed to be a second project where people record themselves reading their own poetry, but it looked like that never happened. There was also at some point a chat room which by the looks of it used a GIF of the Twin Peaks waterfall. I'd know that waterfall anywhere. We also have the page secret-3, which is an assortment of words which was first archived in 2024. Looking at the source code, it does show that something important is apparently hidden. Anyway, back to the music. He released one of my favourite releases of his in 2016 called Did Everything Feel Beautiful When You Let Go of the Idea of Being Anything at All. 2017 would see the release of a compilation I Stayed Up Until the Sunrise But Got to Fall Asleep to the Sounds of Bird Singing, which is described as a compilation of songs from old websites and blogs from 2008 to 2013. 2017 would also see Wishing release their Heat Death EP. 2018 will come along and see the release of Hummingbird, which I didn't realise was actually the first release of his that I came across. Mitch says about the album, these songs make up the last recordings from a home not left in 8 years. The house on Hummingbird Hill, IN. This seems to imply that the place was in Indiana. Wishing would release the song Vampires in 2018, with their last two releases being an EP and an album in 2020, entitled A Giant Explosion Far Away and None of This Was Your Fault, respectively. Mitch would also release the double single Destroy You / By Your Side and a collection of old and spoken word tracks in that same year, entitled Old Soil, as I previously mentioned. From this point on, things will change a little bit, with 2019's album Somewhere in the Distance, Somewhere Towards the Mountains being an ambient/drone album. According to his website, this album presents the concept of travel through the observatory lens of agoraphobia, one journey on a train never taken, through the snow, along the coast, across imagined landscapes. This year would also see the start of another collaboration, which was potentially his longest running, a podcast called All the Space in Between. Although it's currently not listed on his work section of his website, it was a podcast that ran for over 200 episodes, all of which can be found on their YouTube channel. Just like Sad Soul Advice Club, this was also pitched as an advice podcast, with Mitch and his wife Billy, who is British. We'll talk more about Billy at some point too. His next solo release would be 2021's On a TV That No One Saw, which was back to the vocals and guitar and other elements. It once again is about the burden of mental illness on those surrounding you, with it being recorded between 2018 and 2021. That same year he would release another EP, Last Minute Cycle. Unlike almost every other release, this was actually upbeat, with the instruments sounding somewhat hopeful, although this was seemingly to represent the repetitive nature of life, which is something he'd sung about before. 2022 would see the release of When You Run Away, Do You Close Your Eyes, which is self-described as an album written by accident, worked on in the background of other projects and uploaded without intention. These songs were in a large part released slowly over the course of a difficult year, seemingly disjointed in the moment. Together they tell an intimate story, one of grief, uncertainty, and remembering. 2023 would see the most recent release, another ambient album called You Can't Impress Anyone with Normal Pictures of the Sea, described as a 15-track ambient music album about remembering, searching, and rebirth. The album was released on August 26, 2023. But if you look now, many remnants of Flatsound are gone, with the last episode of All the Space in Between never saying goodbye. Episode 208 would air in October 2023, episode 209 would release in January 2024, and episode 210, almost 2 months later in March, would seemingly serve, as of writing, as the last episode. Episode 210, they explain that they weren't in the right mindset to do the podcast, and Mitch explains that his life fell apart a bit. I won't talk about the podcast too much more, but I just wanted to say that the website no longer exists for it, but the TikTok does at least. not those active or anything. What does exist is his website, and I want to talk about his posts since that last album. There's been 5, with the first one coming in November 3rd, 2023. Although none of these have titles, the URL is social media. In the post, he says that he's been going bonkers thinking about social media again, stating, "It's just been a hard transition for me, going from chronically online bedroom artist willing to bare his soul to anyone willing to listen to someone who finds it hard to post or say anything at all. I can't help it though. The new digital landscape feels so evil and wrong to me. Actually, I feel so strongly about it that I can confidently say it is evil and wrong. Or maybe feeling this way is just a sign I'm getting older. I don't know." Saying that in 2010 to 2014 that everything was different. Saying that social media at that point wasn't endless. It was just your friends, and you got to a point where you'd seen the posts you were looking at and you knew that you caught up with the world you were surrounding yourself with. Further stating, "I think about it over and over while going back and forth and worrying. Where do you find the ambition to create and post when your only options are to saturated platforms that encourage and reward inauthenticity and deception? Doesn't that go against why I even started making and sharing art to begin with? And wasn't that why my music was so special to me? Because I allowed it to make its way into people's lives when they needed it most? Wasn't there a magic in it all?" Towards the end of the post, he says, "When I couldn't sleep, I decided to check my ask page for the first time in over a month. I can't tell you what an energy shifting experience that was. I lay there in bed and scrolled past 100 messages I hadn't even read yet, all talking about how important Flatsound is to them and how much they love the newest album. Here I am worried and anxious and feeling so disconnected from everything, and all the while people are writing to me every day and have a genuine connection. Why wasn't I answering them? Why aren't I blogging? What was I even so worried about? I deleted TikTok from my phone on the spot." He ended the post by sharing an ambient track that he left off the album. Later that same month, he shared a song called Stay that was an unreleased track from 2020. That would be the last update for 2023, with the next post being in February 2024, an acoustic song from 2015 that he hadn't shared before. Just after 2 weeks after that, he went into detail about the making of his latest album, track by track, and that's the second most recent blog post. So what was the last post? It was this. On June 16th. It was about Father's Day and how he was thinking about his dad and thankful that where he was because of him. He also shared a song called Tidal Wave. The post also says, "I've been recording again lately. Remember that little side project I told you about? It's doing incredible now thanks to you. Let's talk about that project. It's not mentioned by name, but it was most likely Wishing, which at that time had a track gaining traction called Goodnight Dad, I Love You. It's by far Wishing's most popular song with 54 million streams, and was quite fitting to the post too. He did also have another side project called Felt-Hound. It was more upbeat than the normal acoustic stuff he made. I think it was first mentioned in 2022 through Patreon. Going to flatsound.org/felt leads you to a page for a song called In the Face of a Clock I See Our Reflection in the Glass, with the post reading, "Hello wonderful patron, here it is, the first glimpse of my new side project, like I said in the newsletter. The project name is Felt-Hound and I've been working on it for a few months now. This is the opening track for a debut EP that you can expect later this year. Enjoy." And although this song never seemingly made it online past this point, I have uploaded it to YouTube. You can buy a plush dog from his store, potentially a reference to the project, but that EP never came out. Speaking of his store, it seems to still be up and online. He also had another side project called Concerned Friend, which has been completely wiped from the internet essentially, with all the tracks that were on Spotify being removed too, and the Instagram being gone as well. And there's no post of Mitch on Danny's Instagram either. She's re-released one of the songs herself since, implying in that post that she no longer associates herself with Mitch. So what happened since this post? Well, a bit before his most recent blog post, someone said, "I hope you're doing okay, we miss you." To which he said, "I'm good. I disappeared for little bits of time, but I'm just over here working on myself. Thank you for thinking of me." And maybe that's all this is. But what happened next and where we are now is, I think, uncharacteristic. A now deleted post on a subreddit from September last year was titled Flatsound Updates Discord Server Deleted, with the description reading, "The Patreon, Instagram and both Discord servers have seemingly been deleted today. Any idea what's going on? I never had access to home.html to know if things just imploded in there. It makes sense given the ongoing pushback to social media in general, but it's weird to see so much disappear without a note on it I can find. If anyone has contacts, please share." Although the post is archived on the Wayback Machine, the responses aren't, but the URL still exists, so we can read some of them. Just remember that this is all speculation and theories. A lot of it is just concern for his well-being because, as some comments say, it's concerning for sure. Even people asking for updates from 10 months ago, there's been nothing. One comment does say that as of 6 months ago, they're still running merch because they got a vinyl the month before. There's also questions about his marriage. Billy, who I previously mentioned, is still regularly posting, and there's photos Billy took of Mitch still on her website, but to my knowledge she hasn't mentioned it. Someone also stated that Billy had unfollowed Brooke, who was on one of the most recent podcast episodes, which another commenter found a bit strange. Another person did say before the Discord got deleted, a lot of mods left the server at once under unclear circumstances. My partner tried to look into it further and found that a lot of the former mods had also unfollowed each other and Billy on Instagram, that Billy and Brooke have each other blocked now, and that people who unfollowed Billy still follow and interact with Brooke. At first the theory was that Mitch is struggling with his mental health or having relationship problems, but with the mods all leaving and seemingly choosing sides, it just seems like something must have happened that caused a lot of people to disagree with Mitch and Billy. Whatever's going on, it seems like they're trying to avoid speculation but causing a lot more of it. Another comment also elaborated that in regards to Brooke, the posts featuring her on the podcast Instagram were also taken down, so it could be assumed that something happened with her, especially given a more recent post, which I'll mention briefly in a moment. There were some comments that were making some allegations which have now been deleted with potential throwaway accounts made to post things. After this, the subreddit was closed, and it hasn't had a post since. It's actually restricted. You need your posts accepted. As much as I could leave this video here, there's a few things that I want to update on. To my knowledge, his Instagram is still gone, Discord is still gone, and there have been no updates to my knowledge. He still has over 600,000 monthly listeners currently, but Brooke posted around 2 weeks ago as of writing a post on Instagram that says a year ago she left an abusive relationship. It's a long post, a bit detailed and no one is named, but make of it what you will. As mentioned, I don't believe Billy has addressed it at all either, and unfortunately things remain unclear, and who knows what the future holds. Hopefully this video gave you some answers or a little bit of insight into the online disappearance of Flatsound. Through doing my research in this video, I am unsure if Mitch will ever return, and if the circumstances surrounding his disappearance will ever be addressed. But in saying that, maybe he's making enough money from merch and monthly listeners on Spotify that he doesn't need to come back. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.